Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Today, Darren Parkes is going to be joining me from Kyndryl. And Darren appeared on my radar for just being incredibly passionate around the topic of private 5G and telecoms, and how highly secured and reliable enterprises need highly secured and reliable networks. So I invited him on the podcast today to discuss the use of private wireless networks and how it certainly appears to be the key of networking success in the future, especially with telecoms providers and tech giants alike, all deploying new capabilities to accelerate 5G adoption among enterprises. And here's some mouth-watering stats before we get him on the podcast today. It's estimated that by the end of 2030, local private networks will connect over 150 million cellular devices, which is a huge increase from the 5 million that we saw by the end of 2022. So I want to talk about that, and also how the industry for private networks within enterprise will grow to $109 billion. A quick few questions for you all. Does online privacy or lack of it concern you? And do you ever feel like your online privacy has been invaded? Well, after 2,300 podcast interviews on here, there are so many areas that I'm now aware of, such as the fact that my internet service provider literally knows everything that I do online. And incognito mode in a web browser doesn't offer as much protection as many think. But think about this. Would you find the prospect of handing over your laptop or phone to a complete stranger, or even a friend for that matter, to look at your browsing history to be the stuff of nightmares? And yet, someone out there knows absolutely everything you do online, every click, whether you like it or not. So if you want to stop internet service providers from always looking over your shoulder and profiting from your data, you need something like Private Internet Access, which is the world's most transparent VPN provider. They have over 30 million downloads. PIA has servers in 84 countries and in all 50 states. And it's the perfect software for staying private online because it hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection. And Private Internet Access is really easy to use. There are apps available for all operating systems, and one subscription can protect up to 10 devices at once. And I'll be honest, as a daily tech podcaster, keeping my life private is very important to me. And after thousands of interviews talking about security issues on here, I'm more determined than ever to keep snoopers out of my digital life. So if you want to enjoy all the benefits of Private Internet Access, now's a great time to subscribe. Simply head to piavpn.com/techtalksdaily and get an 83% discount. Seriously, 83%, which works out at just $2.03 a month. And you also get 4 months completely free. But to activate this offer, you must go to piavpn.com/techtalksdaily for a truly private digital life. One last time, piavpn.com/techtalksdaily. We got lots to talk about today, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where we'll talk about how as industries veer towards 5G adoption, why it's crucial for enterprises to consider why this shift from a traditional network infrastructure is so integral, and how they can adapt and evolve to ultimately achieve network success. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Darren. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
I can. Yeah, thanks for having me, Neil. So so my name is Darren Parkes. I'm responsible for our network and edge computing business at Kyndryl in the UK and Ireland.
Awesome. And I know you've got a great backstory, a long history in tech, and I always like to find out more about my guests. So can I ask you share your origin story, maybe where your passion for tech came from, or just a moment that would ultimately put you on this path you're on today?
Yeah, well, it goes back to being 11 years old and day one of secondary school, and the form tutor says to all the kids in this class, what do you all want to be? And there were various answers. And my answer stood out for the teacher and for me, because at the age of 11, I said, I don't know what I want to be, but I know I want to work for IBM. So at that age, I think I know where it's from. Locally, we had a big shiny IBM office, and I used to drive past it regularly with my parents and thought, yeah, that's kind of a cool looking place to work. But I then went on and did start my career in tech. I started in what was software, network management software. That then moved me into networking vendor landscapes, and then that moved me on into via acquisition and other places, service integrators. So previously HP, and then I'm pleased to say on my 40th birthday, no less, I was offered a job at IBM, which I accepted, and I worked there until last year, where we divested, or where IBM divested its global technology services organization of about 90,000 people, and all 90,000 of us, we formed a new company called Kyndryl, which is where I am today.
Fantastic. What a great story. Well, you manifested your future there as a small boy. And I'm curious, I'm going to date myself now. When I was first year of senior school, the BBC had just come out, I think it was, and my dad gave me a book to copy loads of code out of, and I spent half the afternoon trying to correct my syntax errors. Did you have a computer back then?
I did. It was a ZX Spectrum. I don't know if that classifies as a computer, but I certainly thought it was the coolest thing then. Probably not so much now. I was torn between. I had at the same time. I'm perhaps fortunate. Had an Atari, which was obviously a games console, not really a computer, and had the Spectrum. So I was definitely more into games than anything coding orientated or anything like that.
Yeah, that Atari 2600 was a thing of beauty with that wooden veneer finish, wasn't it?
That's the one. Yeah.
But of course, that path would lead you to Kyndryl. So, can you tell me more about the company and the kind of problems it solves with technology, just for anyone hearing about Kyndryl for the first time?
Yeah, of course it would be a new brand as of a year ago. But yeah, so we're a service integrator, and as I said, 90,000 of us. So could argue we're a pretty big startup, and the amalgam, or if you like, our years of expertise is around 35 years we've been doing this, right? So as was IBM Global Technology Services, we've been doing this for 35 years. So, and what we do, we have and continue to do, we help our customers with their digital needs. So we've got depths of skill, and basically we're a people organization, right? So we help customers in all areas of infrastructure, and it over the years, and again to this day, it means we're trusted by many of the world's big top brands in a raft of industries to run their critical infrastructure, which arguably is their heart and lungs. So yeah, we're proud of what we do. We've got a long pedigree of doing it, and we're a people-centric organization that deliver value to our customers on a regular basis.
And before you came on the podcast today, I've been reading more and more about how tech giants are deploying new capabilities to accelerate private 5G adoption amongst enterprises. And especially by the end of 2030, local private networks are expected to connect over 150 million cellular devices, a significant increase from 5 million that we'll see, or that we saw by the end of 2022. So I'm curious, are there any insights you can share around that and what you're seeing, and ultimately what it means for businesses too?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question of growth, isn't it? Right. I mean, I think as more of us in the industry aid more customers to embrace the technology, adopt the technology, then more of the industry or the industries we serve, and I'll sort of start the segue into other industries. So instead of the traditional in the sort of the private 5G domain of manufacturing and industrial and so on, oil and gas and things like that. Retail and other industries are starting to have their interest peaked at what 5G can mean for them, and it really starts to land with them and the other industries I mentioned, because it really affords them a level of agility. They've got some separation from service providers. Not that that's what they seek, but as an unintended outcome, they realise they've got a bit more control over what it is they do. They can save costs. It can be inherently more secure, and it definitely gives them a more robust connectivity. But I mean, I think in terms of growth, it definitely is an area that we're seeing at Kyndryl peaked interest year over year.
And of course, we are living in a time with a lot of uncertainty at the moment. There's a lot of, focus on any new tech project, and it's got to have ROI, provide value to the business before it'll even get over the line. So on that side of things, can you tell me more about the cost benefits to private networks and why pivoting from, let's say, traditional telecom networks could actually enable enterprises to better prioritise their operational costs and ultimately remain agile with a faster application pace too, because that's where the magic happens, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think this is if just as a context setter. If I use Wi-Fi as an example, so Wi-Fi one has been the kind of the well-trodden technology, arguably kind of a little bit considered as an essential and often disregarded. But in terms of Wi-Fi or wireless as a means to communicate, it requires obviously inter-site connectivity. So you're going from, in that setting, you need traditional telecom network operators, but also you need lots of infrastructure, because it doesn't go through walls and other building fabric environments or outdoor spaces. It's 50% technology and 50% physics, and so the physics part plays a really negative effect on the communications and how far signals travel. That means you need more technology at shorter periods of time, meaning, to some extent, to your point, higher costs. Yeah. The adverse, or the inverse, I beg your pardon, is true for private 5G networks. They're more pervasive in terms of the fabrics of buildings or communication outdoor. There's fewer elements of infrastructure needed, but also these infrastructure, or the infrastructure and then the license to operate that environment is fully contained. So it doesn't necessarily have to have as much infrastructure, which of course lowers cost. And also arguably as a better eco footprint. The other thing, then we get to as you said, where the magic happens. That's at the edge. That's the enabling. Private 5G is the enabling factor or facet of edge, and application pace and so on. And so that then, if you look at costs, it's not necessarily a lowering of costs, but it's an increasing of output and increasing of things you can do. So whether that's an oil refinery or an aggregate manufacturer, that leads to them improving their operations and then realizing they've got this really robust, fast, secure private 5G platform or network, but let's call it a platform, because it's then a platform they realize they can run additional applications, new applications that might improve what they do as a business, deliver them faster insights, which help them, might mean they can increase their quality, and that might mean they get a load of fiscal improvements as a result of that as well.
And I think also security teams, for the most part, are probably kept awake at night by their employees wanting to work on any device, at any time, location, and most worryingly of all, of course, is any network. So can you expand on why network technologies like 5G actually provide a higher level of security for enterprises too?
Yeah, and sort of zooming it in even further on into private 5G, but the same topic area.
Yeah,
the device that's going to be accessing the network is if you like locked to you need this very specific SIM. It's not the SIM that you and I would be able to get from a popular brand on the high street selling mobile phones, but it's a dedicated private 5G SIM. So the first thing is, if you haven't got one of those and you can't access, there's a physical barrier to you accessing the network. But even those people that have got that, well, actually, let me make an adjacent point to that. That allows you to do very physical, if you like, zero trust networking, right? So you can decide what roles or what users have access to that network or don't. So that's one aspect. The other is that when you're on that network, the private 5G manufacturers have built in strong air interface ciphering, meaning that the ability to, if you like, sniff those communications, make it inherently more secure. So I think in terms of the license spectrum and their embedded security standards, private 5G definitely makes it easier for organizations to control their systems, monitor any malicious interference, and then they can, as I said earlier, they can allocate security roles to devices or to users. It's a very important dimension to 5G, and again, the underpinnings of the world of edge as well.
And I suspect we will have a few techies, security teams, and also business leaders wanting to explore this new approach as it emerges, but also find it a little overwhelming and daunting. So on that side of things, do you have any tips around the implementation process for private networks and how better to enable a smoother deployment? I appreciate that's a pretty big question. It isn't that simple, but is there any tips you can offer around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think first thing is I guess a philosophy, and one I know my colleagues Kyndryl share, right? And that is that let's first understand the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Just because the tech exists doesn't mean you have to have the tech. as a default. But I think on that point, understand that there's a problem to be solved, or there might not be a problem at all, but it might be an area of optimization. So you've got kind of those two ends of things. Either there's a challenge, a problem, we can't do this, we need to do this faster. That might be if you like, defined as a problem or a challenge, or an area of optimization where we need to have an application that looks at the the different aggregate to decipher how much we need to grind that aggregate to be able to increase the quality of the cement that we're going to be producing. Therefore, we've optimized something, right? As an example. The other thing is on the implementation process, is that this notion in the IT industry, there's a focus towards big, grand, big transformation programs. I think what's important to understand around private 5G is it can deliver that grand transformation, but it doesn't have to be where it starts either. So if you've got an appetite to go grand transformation, absolutely go for it. But also recognize that it can be something that can start small, start discrete, and then be meaningful. And that then leads into probably what is the best step in the implementation process, which happens to be something that's done often in tech, is proof of concept. The difference with private 5G is the proof of concept tends to be, very typically is a live production environment. And so that's why about a high 90% of POCs remain as the bought solution. From there, of course, you then get into, how do you scale that? How do you look at integrating it with other applications? Of course, if it's private 5G for let's say a push to talk application, that could be one of those, if you like, discrete use cases. But if it's a much bigger one where you want to integrate vehicle telematics and have heads-up displays and be able to have autonomous workers, but also implement some worker safety and integrate all those applications and into a monitoring platform, then you need a partner that's able to not just implement a private 5G environment, but is also able to understand what applications you've got, what applications you might need to make the whole, and then how do you run that? Whether you choose to run that as a customer or whether you choose to have somebody like Kyndryl run that environment for you.
And if we were to zoom out for a moment and try to envision where this path might lead us, it does feel like private 5G could be that trigger for general use of edge as a third landing zone for data beyond prem or even cloud. And that, of course, radically expands the options for working with data and private networks. And they could be the key enablers for that advancement. But you live and breathe this space. So I'm curious, what excites you about the future and what should businesses be doing to prepare for that future too?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I do get excited, so I have to contain myself. But seriously, it's edge is the next big wave of IT. We saw cloud's consumed, everybody's list of things to do and grow and transform in the last at least 10 years. And I think edge is going to be as impactful, if not more, than that. Absolutely, it's exciting. I'm also a big proponent of learning from the decisions of the past and then taking corrective action if needs be. And I think that I'll draw a parallel there between the build out of cloud. Let's go back 10 years ago, which might have started with corporate credit card purchases, right, in a highly organic way. That was okay. But if we look at how it is today, that wouldn't be considered okay for many enterprise customers, right? They see cloud sprawl, they see the spiraling costs, they see duplication, inconsistent policies. So again, some of that learning, I think we have to learn from that and then bring some improvements to how we do things. And so with edge, I think the lessons of the past are ones to reflect on. So questions then, do organizations organically adopt on the go in that organic fashion to think more strategically about how they implement and how they consider edge. And we perhaps ought to ask our customers to think about cloud and how they are more forensic about that right now. So that being, what goes where, how much, when, who with, all those sorts of things. How do we connect and include edge as a destination for applications and services in that much broader canvas? So I think summary, it's hugely exciting. I think the lessons of the past are let's get to that more strategic viewpoint as quick as we can so that we don't end up with the sprawl, the spiraling costs, the inconsistent policies and platforms and software and duplication, and get to something that really does impact the business. When it does that, then edge becomes seriously powerful.
And what about yourselves at Kyndryl? There's probably not too much you can share, but is there anything you can share about your focus, what you're going to be working on in your current role and for the company, of course?
Yeah, so we're going to continue. I'm going to continue doing the things that I focused on last year and subsequent years. But I think just a frame, a sort of subtle shift. I think a phrase I coined is the omni-connected enterprise, and I don't think I've got the patent on it, but it's certainly an internal one, right? So this whole notion is, if we look at some of the external forces, right? So more and more customers are seeking not just to have connected enterprises, but they also want their enterprise to, in effect, thinking from a connectivity or a perspective, they want it to be as one, and they want it to be well defined through consistent policy, that to be common controls leading to better management, and ultimately to maintain a really rigorous security posture. And so that's why they want to have everything, if you like, feeling and acting as one. And I think that includes the full stack of networking domains, whether that's enterprise or from heritage, legacy data centers to hyperscaler, cloud, and hybrid to that edge landscape. And I think the term hybrid here probably simplifies, but I think you could also use that term. And we focus very heavily, and I'll continue to focus very heavily, and we will at Kyndryl, on our consulting family, our Kyndryl Consult family as well. So that's really the people, the skill, the brains, if you like, that help lead our customers through the challenges ahead and the myriad of choices they've got, of which there are many, which invariably are common challenges, even across industries, and yet obviously each customer is distinctly personal. So yeah, that's my focus for the year ahead.
Well, a huge thanks for sharing your insights today. We started the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. And as we come full circle now, I'm going to ask you to get a little reflective and ask you to recommend a book that might have inspired you or mean something to you, or something that you've enjoyed recently that we can add to our Amazon wish list, and listeners can check that out. All I'm going to ask is, what are you going to leave us with and why?
Yeah, so I'm going to leave you with a book called We Can't Run Away From This by Damien Hall. And so it's a non-tech related book, but let me try and string it together, because there's many of us in technology, right? It's a high pace industry, and many of us need to get outside, get outdoors, and use exercise as a means of release. So Damien, for those that know him, or for those that don't, it goes by the moniker of Ultra Damo. He runs ultra races. He's just won the Montaigne Spine Race, the Winter Spine Race. And he talks about, this is very much an eco sort of angle, if you like, right? And so this is how, various manufacturers of sporting equipment would tell you need new trainers, you need new T-shirt because it's the latest thing this year. But also thinking about things like nutrition, and then, of course, travel and things like that. So he takes a really interesting look at how things that we think are good for us, which are getting outdoors, running, walking, hiking, whatever, keeping fit, has got an eco footprint, and tunes us into some of the things and some of the areas we can watch out for. And ultimately, I think he would say that the best equipment you need is the equipment you've got, right? So yeah, We Can't Run Away From This by Damien Hall, and that would be the book I would leave you with.
Fantastic. I'll get that added straight to our Amazon wish list. And for anyone wanting to explore everything we've talked about today in a little more detail, or maybe they want to contact your team or find out more about your work at Kyndryl, where's the best starting point for everything?
You can visit Kyndryl.com, and you can find all of the capabilities we have. We've got our service offerings, how we help our customers, the industries we help and we're involved in, and also customer testimonials spoken in detail. And there's a very good one also on Kyndryl.com of one of our public customers called Dow Chemical, which are using private 5G to help them advance their operations, very much entangled with edge and the whole application landscape as well.
Fantastic. I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. And love chatting with you today. I mean, especially as industries veer towards private 5G adoption, particularly love talking with you about why it's crucial for enterprises to consider why the shift from traditional network infrastructure is so integral, and how businesses can adapt and achieve network success in the future. But more than anything, I think it's that story of a boy with a ZX Spectrum and an Atari 2600 looking at an IBM office in his neighborhood saying to his teacher at just 11, I don't know what I want to do. I want to work for IBM. And that's exactly what you did. I think that story and leaving us with a cracking book just brought it all together for me. So thanks for sharing your story today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Neil. Much appreciated.
So a huge thank you to Darren for coming on today, talking about the cost benefits to private networks, why technologies like 5G provide higher level of security for enterprises, how to enable a smooth deployment and that implementation process for private networks, and also for leaving us with a few predictions for the future. But over to you. What were your thoughts about anything we talked about today? Do you have any predictions? Would you like to come on here and share your story? Whatever it is, my door is open to each and every one of you. Just simply email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes. Nice and easy to find. And we'll keep this conversation going. But a big thank you for listening today, and until next time, don't be a stranger.